Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you happen to be. Welcome to the latest episode of Anime Octane, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about anime, a recent piece of anime entertainment, or possibly even something from the classics. But tonight it is, in fact, a very recent piece of entertainment. It is the currently running anime To Your Eternity, airing here in the States anyway on Crunchyroll. And as is the case with the show, we're going to be talking about all the things that work for it or doesn't work for it, good, bad, message themes, etc., which means we're going to spoil it. So this is sort of like the anime version of our full fat spoiler chat. If you have not seen this show, and you do not want it to be spoiled, then I suggest you watch something else. If you have seen it or you don't mind spoilers, feel free to hang around, jump into the chat, tell us what you think about the show if you've seen it or what we're saying about it if you haven't. And I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter and a couple of other places as a tech journalist and a couple of other things. Joining me tonight is the founder of our massive enterprise, our decent-sized enterprise, Manny. Introduce yourself if you would.
Hey, this is Manny. I'm the founder of Nerd Caliber. Thank you so much for checking out this episode.
Nice and concise, the way we like it. In the chat, you've got an umlaut over the A. If this was German, it'd be fair. So we've got Fado, Now United. Welcome to the show. I'm sure I butchered those first two words, so my apologies. And Sufig, I think you said something the minute I created this event a day ago. So if you're still hanging around or you're back, welcome to the show. If not, well, next time. And I believe that's what we've got so far, which is no big surprise. It's Memorial Day. So, and just a notification, Nerd Caliber recognizes all of the sacrifice given for this country, for our freedoms, and so on, by those people who have died in the service to this country on this Memorial Day. Now, what is To Your Eternity? It's an anime. It is an anime based on a manga. It is an anime based on a manga by a mangaka with not a lot of content under her belt. However, what that content is going to tell you something. This is the manga who created the one-shot Koi no Karachi, which was the basis of the anime movie A Silent Voice, which, if you have seen, is one of the most affecting, wonderful, tear-inducing, realistic stories that has been put on anime ever. It's just amazing. So knowing that, you can expect that there's going to be a certain a style, emotional tone to this particular product, which is not a one shot. This is a longer running manga. And it's there. We'll get into that for sure. But this apparently the manga was apparently first created in. No, I got this in one of my things that I brought up here, and now I can't find it. I think it was 2008, and didn't actually wind up getting published in a weekly publication until 2011. Because it won some award as like a Best Newcomer award in 2008, and then that was supposed to, I guess, be associated with some sort of publication, and the entity that gave the award, there was a problem. So it wound up in rights hell for 3 years. A second manga that this mangaka Oima Yoshitoki created was actually her first published piece. actually, I've got that back. I'm sorry. The A Silent Voice, the manga A Silent Voice was based on, was the first one that was held up in publication hell for 3 years. Um, so what this is, well, I'm trying to think of a way to describe this. Well, we're going to give spoilers anyway, but it's tough to describe without like getting into plot because it is very story heavy. All right, let's see if I can do this as easily as possible. Uh, at the beginning of the very first episode, we are introduced to an orb. It's basically looks sort of like a pearl about the size of a ping pong ball. It is placed on a world, this world, or we're not sure what world, whether it's a fantasy world or whatever, um, uh, by a being that we know nothing about, um, to experience and grow. And that's literally all we know about it. It changes itself based on things that affect it, and the first thing that majorly that affects it is it encounters the corpse of a dog in where it gets dropped, which is this Arctic emptiness, all snow and ice, mostly empty. Um, and we find out one of the things that this thing does is it can recreate itself in the form of something that makes it, that has an impact on it. And in this case, it's the dog. Um, and the dog winds up going back to what turns out to be its master, a boy, sort of silver bluish haired boy, whose name we never get. And the first episode is about their interaction. And I guess, like I said, this is spoilers. Spoilers, folks. Once again, I'll look over into the chat there to see if there's okay. Spoilers, spoilers. The emotional impact that the boy has on this thing is when the boy dies, and it's hard. The story of how that happens is believable, you know, realistic in the sense that there's no magic or anything. Tragic as hell, beautiful in a terribly tragic way. And that first episode sets the tone for, one would think, what's the rest of the show. And that's it. That's To Your Eternity. Fumetsu no Anate e, or Anate. Again, apologies for my pronunciation of the Japanese title for the show and the manga. So we're going to start off with what we like about this, what works as an anime, all of that sort of stuff, and we're going to start with Manny. Give us the things that you like about it. What worked for you? What do you think that they tried and pulled off, and so on?
Wow. I mean, it's been a long time since I really liked an anime like I like this one. It's different from anything I've seen in a long time. I think outside of this, I was trying to describe it to someone, and I was the best I could describe it as Starman meets The Thing, but which makes no sense to anyone unless you were born or grew up in the 80s.
I get that. Without
No,
the horror elements of the thing.
yes, yes. But it's a little bit. I mean, that's a little bit of horror. The
That's
idea
true.
of you know, but it's wow. Every episode is jam packed with so much emotion and plot that I I can't believe sometimes that like, wow, this is just the third episode, and I'm already blown away with the amount of the characters in the show, the pacing. It seems like at times like slow but moving at the same time. It's hard to explain because there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of stuff happening in each episode. Um, I I mean there's I mean the Fushi his journey from from a rock to a wolf and then eventually to I guess a teenage boy.
Yeah, I would say
That
he
really
looks. So I brought the image up of him and Joanne, or yeah, Joanne. which is what he calls. And by the way, Fushi is the name that he's given later on in this boy form. We do not know what his name is or was when he was alive. But this is the image here of the boy when he was alive, and the being in the form of the being that will eventually become called Fushi in the form of the dog Joanne.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, each episode it always breaks what I expect it to be. Sometimes I think something's going to happen in a way like, okay, they're not going to have this person die, or that this is not going to happen. But it surprises you. It surprises you, and it what gets me excited is that each story is not just an exploration of what it means to be human, but the fact that the story the setting is real. You know, so when someone gets shot by an arrow, especially if it's a kid, uh, good chance that kid will die, you know? And the fact they showed that I was very impressed because I thought like, okay, this character. One thing I want to tell our viewers: don't get if you haven't seen it yet, which is weird. This is we're spoiling the heck out of everything right now. Don't get attached to too many characters because characters will die
Yeah.
in this show so far, and it seems like there's like a lot of mini story arcs. Seems like almost right now looks like every 3 episodes it revolves Fushi's around a certain character, and then that changes, and they Fushi moves on to a new environment. Um, but yeah, but I don't want to make it sound like that this is a very a boring show. It's just all about like philosophy and introspection. No, there's lots of action. There's a giant demon bear. Um, there's a tree that's kind of like a swamp thing monster that encounters that. The most horrifying thing about it is that it takes away the memories and essence of what it's learning, which I saw that and I was like, because when I heard there was going to be a monster episode, I was like, you know, I was like, I was worried there's going to be like an action show at a certain point. But no, it's kind of horrifying the fact that Fushi's trying to save himself, itself, um, from losing what's learned. Because it doesn't want to go back and revert back to what it was originally. It's liking what it's learning about humanity, and I thought that was really fascinating. That the fact that this was that's a one episode. You know, I mean, episodes like that I tend to see it drawn out and like to like 6 to 12 episodes, and I love how compact each episode is.
And I think one of the great things about that particular episode is that, so up to this point, March, this little girl here, um, is the person that gives Fushi the name, and Fushi is apparently Japanese for something like immortal, or you know, or it's a word that's connected to the concept of immortality. Um, and up to this point, it's very clear that Fushi is essentially immortal. It doesn't matter if Fushi dies. Fushi can die, although it's challenging.
Mm.
Well, it can be challenging if Fushi tries to stop it. There are a lot of times where Fushi just doesn't understand that it needs to stop it, and it'll die. Um, but it can always essentially resurrect itself. Um, so there's no stakes, there's no danger realistically for Fushi unless you know. And at this point, Fushi really doesn't understand an awful lot about anything, so it's pretty easy for deaths to happen. But then we get introduced to this tree spirit monster thing, whatever it is, and we suddenly get real stakes for Fushi. This thing is able to, when it puts roots into Fushi, to essentially suck out the memory and everything associated with one of the things it has been so emotionally connected to. It can now turn into. And in the show where you go, okay, well, this is really interesting to see where this thing is technically OP. It can't die realistically. Now it has stakes. Now there's something that can be absolutely terrifying to it.
Yeah, and it gives hints that there's something malevolent, something out there that wants to destroy Fushi's learning,
Yes.
which is again interesting because it's not like it's not trying to kill it. It's just trying to stop it from learning, which is just a to me it's just a very different way of thinking conflict, especially in an anime.
Yeah. Now, again, we're spoiling the heck out of it, so I guess it doesn't matter. But um, the each episode at the very beginning is narrated by the entity that put the orb onto this world. And in that episode, we get to see what that entity is, or at least what it wants to look like at that point. It takes on a human form, a figure in a black robe with like blue eyes, like all blue, you know, not quite glowing bright blue, but slightly glowing all blue eyes. Um, and it tells Fushi, um, without giving it any help, what this thing is doing, and that's why we learn that there is this malevolence out there that is going to try to stop Fushi, and we learn that the reason is because this being has put whatever Fushi is into this world to eventually get to the point where it can fight this malevolence and save this world. And so now we know there is a long game. We know that Fushi can be hurt. We know that there are other entities involved in this long game that have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with Fushi's day-to-day learning from the people he encounters. And it's just wonderful, wonderful story building, world building, fantastic. Anyway, it's not my turn; it's your turn.
um, uh, I mean, so I like again, like I mentioned before, I like that it breaks my expectations. What I worry that's like for example, Perona, when she's about to shoot that arrow to try to kill the person that killed Machi or March.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, in my mind, I expect, okay, I know she had trouble trying to use bow and arrow in the beginning. Now she's gonna have to get roll a 20 and get the critical strike against her. But no, that didn't happen. She still missed in a way.
Yep.
She hit, but not where she wanted. And again, I love that. I was like, oh, this is good. It's surprising me each time of where I'm thinking. Every time I think I know where the story's going, it just keeps giving me surprise left hook.
Yeah, there's no um, there's no typical anime. I've discovered my true power now. I can shoot. You know, it's like no, you're still a pretty lousy shot. You know, you know, there's very little. I mean, there are times when I get kind of frustrated. It's like, come on, Fushi, you should know not to let this happen to you. But it hasn't learned enough to learn to not let that happen. And thank God the writing is so good that it lets that logical step for what is obviously a fantastical story actually play out.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but yeah, those mainly what I love about it. Great characters, great story. I love the settings that they're in. It's enough so that it feels like almost like otherworldly, almost. You know, like it definitely there's some magic. It looks like it might be in the past, but it doesn't feel like it's like ancient Japan or ancient Russia or ancient America. You know, it feels it.
So
You know, it's
I think it's actually based on ancient Japan. So this is March, the little girl who, as we've already spoiled for you, eventually dies. This is her all geared up to be a sacrifice to that demon bear, Onigami. Oniguma. Kuma is bear, so Guma. Oniguma. And the reason this happens is that her people, and as you can see from this image, they use face darkening very much like the indigenous Ainu of the northern islands of Japan. You know, particularly for children. You know, when they do a different design when they're adult women, and then when they're married, it's different as well, and so on. And the people that are taking her to be the sacrifice, the woman that Biona shoots at, as Manny mentioned, is named Hayase, and looks like that. um, has what is essentially a naginata weapon on her back. Um, it's while it may not specifically be, ancient Japan as the Japanese are dealing with, moving into the territory of the Ainu and so on, it's really inspired by that at the very least.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I guess I was thrown up is because in the first episode he's in the Arctic landscape, and then he's just walking and then find stuff over there. But it could be a lot of reasons for that too.
Right.
Ice Age or something like that.
Yeah. And
Um,
again, inspired by that doesn't necessarily
yeah,
mean that this is straight up, this is the island of Japan and so on.
But yeah, again, this is a this is a fantastic anime. I don't know how much more I can just tell people about it.
All right. Well, I'll jump in. So everything Manny has said, 100%. The writing is absolutely stellar from a character standpoint, from a story and plot standpoint, and the the wonderfully both logical extension of what would really happen, which allows that writer to um, give you surprises because it's an anime and you expect, special things to happen, and a lot of times they don't. People die. This is, this is the A Song of Ice and Fire. This is the Game of Thrones of fantastical anime. Um, and just like George R. R. Martin, if somebody dies or something unexpected happens like that, it's not a Deus Ex Machina out of left field. It's because it develops logically from what was created earlier in the plot or in the story. Um, and I love that. That is my absolute favorite kind of writing. So that's fantastic. The animation is really good. The character designs, again, this, Hayase, we'll go back to, Fushi and Joanne, just really wonderful. In some of the recent episodes, we've got, the brewer, who's the old man there, and Pioran, the old woman, and of course Fushi again. Um, just fantastic character designs, and the animation is very good. When there are fight scenes and action scenes, the Sakaga is good. It's not a shonen, so it doesn't go out of its way to really jack up the Sakaga, the animation during fight scenes, way more than what the rest of the animation is. But it's still wonderful. Whether it's the sort of really fantastical fights or fight between Fushi and this wood thing, this tree thing, or brutal street fights between Hayase and her you know mask, fur, whatever you want to call that, head covering, guards, helpers, soldiers, and Perona or any of the other people, or Fushi when Fushi gets involved, and that's brutal. Um, that fight is rough, and it
No,
doesn't spare. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I would say the action fights, those are fantastic as well. Very well choreographed,
Yep.
very intense. There were parts where like I was at the edge of my seat, wondering what's going to happen next, how they're going to defeat this, how they're going to stop that. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah. And they don't also shy away from the brutality. When Fushi turns into Oniguma, which he can do, and that's part of the whole storyline, the encounter with the demon bear and so on. And he attacks Hayase. The next time we see her, she is
Hmm.
all but destroyed. She is just messed up.
Yeah,
Um, as
which
would,
yeah, she deserves it. Though,
well,
in
yeah,
my
she
opinion.
deserves it. But two,
Yeah.
as would happen if it's essentially a polar bear the size of an elephant fights you, that's
Hmm.
probably what's going to happen to you. Um, Other things that I like about it that are from a production standpoint. So the music is wonderful. The OP is beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Um, the the voice cast is really good, and a mix of experienced voice actors that have few main character roles, a lot of supporting, and just a few main character roles in their resumes, and almost brand new. Fushi is an actor with three, including To Your Eternity, roles to his credit.
Mm.
That's it. One of which is another one that's airing right now, Shadow's House or something like that. He's absolutely brand new, and he is doing an excellent job. From what I understand, this character in Shadow's House is like a complete, you know, Chad of a guy, a jerk, um, sort of a stocky, chubby jerk of a kid. And then he's doing Fushi, which is somebody, a being that has barely even grasped the concept of vocalization. So yeah, that guy is going places. That voice actor.
Oh, quick thing. When when Fushi in his wolf form defeats the demon bear in episode 3, I believe. Um, when he says thank you, when he learns his first word and says it in his wolf form. I don't know if you felt the same way, but like I was I was like, oh my god, I was terrified. Because it was wonderful to see that, but also like horrifying.
Yeah,
Like I could it is such a way where like if I was there and I saw that happen, I think I would lose my mind.
and it's funny in a later episode he actually speaks again while he's in the wolf form in the form of Joanne, um, and the voice reverts back because Fushi has learned to be a little bit more, well, eloquent isn't the right word, clear, in a human form, but when he changes to the wolf or dog form, they call it different things, different people, um, and says something, it's still pretty rough. And it's like that's a nice touch. That clearly this animal isn't designed to speak, so whatever Fushi is doing to get it to speak isn't, it's not going to get a whole lot better. Um, so I love that. I think all of that is wonderful. Um, that's pretty much it, folks. The world building, like Manny said, is fantastic. Um, you know, you go from this Arctic, wasteland, that we first see them in, um, to a very very heavily wooded area, which is where March's people and Perona's people are from. Um, to although you can't see it, and I don't think I've got a. Yeah, this is just Hayase, but Hayase is from, and I can't remember the name of the region that it begins with a. It's almost like Yanama, something like that. Uh,
Yeah, 6 letter word.
yeah, um, is clearly something like a medieval Asian, typical medieval Asian town.
Mm.
Um, with similar style of buildings, you know, sort of pagoda-esque roofs, and so on. Um, and it's really wonderful. And then when the old woman, um, uh, Piran, takes them to where she's originally from, they have to sail on a boat across a narrow sea. It doesn't, or a bay or big bay. It's really hard to say, but they do have to sail across it to get to her land. And her land, the people are different. They have different names. There's a character named Gugu. His brother is Shin, which could be Chinese or Japanese. It's a very Asian name. But a lot of the people, like Pioran, is not a typical modern Japanese name. So they are a completely different culture.
Mm.
I look forward to all of this. The name To Your Eternity implies, based on a lot of things you see in the opening credit montage images and the closing credits, that Fushi's going to be around for a very long time and encounter all kinds of cultures, not necessarily just because of physical travel, just because of how long Fushi's going to live.
I've actually, on purpose at this point now, always fast forward the opening credits because I don't want to be spoiled. That's how much I like this story. I don't want to know what's going to happen next.
Yep.
Some of the episodes on Crunchyroll have maybe like a 2 minute preview of what's going to happen next. Again, I skip those as well because I want to be totally surprised. That's how much enjoying this show.
Yeah. It really is that good of a show where um, I like anime and I look forward to the next episode when an episode ends. Usually, this I look forward to absolutely breathlessly.
Mm.
Um, the last thing that was close to this for me was Golden Kamui for kind of similar reasons in that it explored a real world location and time where most of us in the West, anyway, know almost nothing about. Um, Hokkaido and the Ainu culture there shortly after the Russo-Japanese War. So I'm thinking like 1917 ish. Um, and it's fantastic. It's that that has a very similar. Um, you both learn stuff, but it also has a really complex and complicated plot that is now into 3 seasons. So,
Okay,
it
that sounds
remind.
intriguing.
Oh, it is. Oh, it's Golden Kamuy is amazing. It also has some of the funniest stuff ever, and some very disturbing things. Um, uh, yeah, life anywhere in the world in that part of the very early 20th century was a lot rougher for a lot of people than it is for most of us nowadays. And, um, there are a lot of things that happen that you would cringe at. Then I think it's like, oh, you know what? My grandparents or great grandparents might do something very similar. But that's Golden Kamui. That's not this. And To Your Eternity uh, doesn't have that because it doesn't necessarily delve into those sort of more disturbing, realistic aspects of things, like seal hunts and being attacked. Well, I guess it does sort of have being attacked by bears, but um, it's a different kind of realism. It shaves a little bit of the more um, disturbing and gross aspects of realism off things. Whereas Golden Kamui, a lot of cases, it's not going to shove it in your face, but it's there. It's part of the series. Um, and I guess that's pretty much all the things I can wrap up about it. Um, just if you really love emotionally and intellectually impactful entertainment, anime or any kind, this is for you.
Mm.
You should read
Indeed.
it.
Yeah,
Now,
this has my. I know we usually say this for the end, but this has my highest recommendation. I can't think of right now a more better modern anime going on that could show. Like I feel very comfortable showing this to people, knowing that they will get a kick out of it.
yep. Another. So as far as the level of what I would recommend, or how strongly I could recommend this based on the quality, the last one of this quality that I could always say you need to watch is Violet Evergarden.
Mm.
The stories, its world building, the characters, it's the same level of quality while being a absolutely completely different concept. Um, and I guess you could say in one way Violet is a little bit OP in sort of everything she does. Um, but that's not necessarily in the way you would think of an OP character like in an isekai or something like that, or a typical shonen anime. So now I think this is going to be a pretty short segment, folks. But Manny, what didn't you like? What didn't work for you?
I sort of gave it away. I didn't like the opening credits only because it to me it showed too much.
Yep.
Like I didn't mind the first time because I want to know what the show was about. But after I saw what was heading towards, I was like, and I saw like it's like the opening in a way it sort of spoils you that what's gonna happen in some ways. I had to just fix. I didn't have to keep skipping that. Um, And the again the preview thing I mentioned at the end, I did I think the previews gave me the wrong impression at times of what the episode would be about. Like the one with the tree. When I saw the preview for that, it sort of like made it appear like this is going to be an action episode. That's all it's going to be supposed about a fight scene, and I wasn't interested in that. I almost like, oh, I'm going to have to watch this and grin and bear it. But it's no, it was fantastic. It was much deeper than I expected.
Yeah.
And that's really it. The music's good. I mean, I know the series just started. Really, it's only what I think right now. Episode 8 came out today.
Yep.
Um, but uh, so far, it's just been an extremely pleasant ride.
Yeah. Well, pleasant.
Well,
Yes. Um, have tissues handy.
yes.
Um, so I don't know that I can think of anything I don't like about this. Um, and that's almost unheard of
Hmm.
for me. I review and critique a lot of things for Nerd Caliber, and it's really tough for me to say, all right, there's nothing about this that's bad, or even not not necessarily good, just mediocre. There's nothing about this that's mediocre.
Hmm.
It's at least good, up to absolutely outstanding. Um, God, there's got to be something. Come on, I
um,
you know I can't think of anything. The fact that it's only currently set for 20 episodes,
hmm.
so it's either going to be two 10-episode seasons with a break in between, like a first core and a second core, or it's going to just keep running straight through to 20 episodes. Um, and yeah, I like the idea of a story that's going to wrap up in a certain amount of time. I also am so in love with this world and the characters in it that I don't want it to wrap up.
I was just thinking recently that I think I'm spoiled now with Netflix that I just like seeing like all the episodes in the season come out at once, and I could just binge it at once. This one I don't feel the same way at all. Actually, I prefer it weekly as it is going because each episode's so heavy. Like I really had to stop it. I had to stop at times and think about, okay, what did I just see? What is going on here? And I had to take time to kind of ingest of all the themes and changes in the story that's taking place.
Yep. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about themes, about messages, and tone, and so on. Um, is there a consistent tone to these stories? Is there an overriding or overarching theme, or a message or series of messages that you've gleaned so far?
Well, one I felt that is trying to talk about is that people that die in your life are still with you in some way and still have an impact in your life in some way. I and the fact that um, and that tree monster, the fact that Fushi was fighting to keep that, what I think was the author trying to say that even in tragic moments in our lives, we need that so it helps keep us at our core, that keep us as who we are. Um, I've thought of that, and I think generally this the looking at the human experience through new eyes. I think sometimes in life we just go about our day, and I think sometimes we forget that sometimes things we do are pretty fantastic in themselves, or a we take for granted that we can write and read, and speak a language that someone else can comprehend, and seeing Fushi struggle with that in the beginning makes you appreciate that, and it makes you think about communication in a different way. Um, and Of course the perspective about human nature, and how people can be untrustworthy or very loving.
Yeah, I agree with all of those. I think that so if there's a consistent tone to this, I would say it is the seriousness of everything, even in the lightness of moments. Um, it is as you described. There are very heavy moments in every episode, that are going to sit on your chest for a while as you digest them. Um, and there are also light moments, but even in the light moments when there's a little bit of levity and so on, it's it's serious in the sense that it's realistic to the character and what's happening to them at that time. So it's not jokes played for jokes. It's in the most original use of the term situation comedy. It's humor that comes out of the situation that naturally develops from where the characters are, and what they're doing. Um, and so I think that's tone. I think that the idea that you were getting at, where it's about sort of the I don't want to say the impermanence of death. It's about the that death is not a complete lack of existence of a person or a thing. That person or thing exists somewhere for as long as it can inside you, inside the people that they knew, that they loved, that loved them or hated them, or um, in records now in modern times, and so on. And Fushi is essentially a record of all of the things that have had significant emotional or experiential impact on it. Um, so I think that may wind up being really the big story, and maybe that's sort of where Fushi's growth is heading toward. Is this awareness that death does not equal the cessation of the existence of a person or thing. Chuy El Marcianito, welcome to the show. So, Chuy, we're talking about the anime To Your Eternity. We're pretty close to wrapping up here, but we will still be offering spoilers. Probably not that many, but we will still be offering some spoilers about this show. So, now that we've got another person in the chat, we'll try to keep the spoilers down as we wrap the show up, so that if you do want to watch it, and by God, please, you should want to watch this. We won't spoil too much of it for you if we can avoid that. So I think that ultimately that is where the show is going. I think a big part of the show is growth, is learning and growing as an entity, because you can't really call Fushi a person, but also as people. March certainly grew. Perona grew, and now that I don't want to give away spoilers, we won't. They really grew at the end. The people in Perona and March's village ultimately grow. All of them in a way. Gugu is in his current growth arc, in his arc right now. So I think that's going to be a big part of it. Is the importance of growth as a living, experiencing, and aware intelligence. Mm. And I think that wraps up pretty much where I think the show is. We already sort of slid recommendations in there, but we'll do it again just to wrap up for our new guests. And if you want to a numerical rating out of 10, so many. Once again, recommendations and so on.
Oh, if I was to rate this from 1 to 10, definitely a 10 right now. So far, it's near perfect so far. I mean, again, I want to curious to see where it goes, but so far it's just been really good.
Yep. I agree. Completely 100% recommend it. Have tissues. It's like I said, it's sort of Game of Thrones-esque in that you get attached to things or people, and they may not be around in 2 or 3 episodes. But it's not gratuitous. It's always makes sense logically and is part of the story, and that's one of the reasons why I love it. The story is absolutely brilliant. I would give it right now. I'd give it a 10 out of 10. There are, since I started tracking this stuff, I have in my anime list 464 anime. Not all of them that I've watched. All that I've watched some of. There are drops like everybody else and so on. But way more that I've watched than I've dropped. And out of that, there are 9 that I've rated as a 10. Out of 464 anime, to me, there are 9 animes that are a 10 out of 10. And right now, this is a 10 out of 10. So that's it, folks. That is To Your Eternity. Currently running on Crunchyroll, 8 episodes out of an expected 20. Please watch it. You will absolutely, thank us for the recommendation. Now, going forward, let's see. Tomorrow night we have Nerd Week Live, our nerd news show. A bunch of stuff already up in our internal discussion group. There's been some news in this past week. And I'm going to plug the website. We have a new regular weekly game news roundup column coming from Chocobo Butt. Christina did an excellent job, bang up job with her very first one. It's fantastic. Go read it, folks. Nerdcaliber.com, particularly if you're a gamer. And there was a lot of game stuff dropped because of announcements about E3 coming up in 3 weeks. So people have started, or companies have started dropping stuff that may not wind up in E3, or maybe as a teaser for stuff that they're going to be making bigger announcements in E3. So it's a lot of stuff in this very first one. Thursday is Full Fat Spoiler Chat, and it is Cruella. So if you have seen that and you want to talk about it, join us in the chat. If you haven't, but you don't mind spoilers, join us in the chat because that is, of course, Full Fat Spoiler Chat, and it is spoilery, like this is. And then next Monday is No Nerd Caliber, and I don't think we've picked a topic yet, but as soon as we do, we'll let you know what that's going to be. So, Manny, if you would give us a goodbye.
Well, take care, everyone. Thank you for checking out this episode. We have a Patreon page. We have merchandise at the bottom of this video, hopefully, if it's still there. Please continue to support us, and thank you very much.
That's the patreon.com/nerdcaliber is up on your screen right now. We've got just a couple of very low dollar tiers. Basically, what we're looking for is for you, if you like what we're doing, to help us out. And that's pretty much it. So, and also check out our merch, which again, unless you're using ad blockers, I use ad blockers too, but anyway, then you should be seeing that, in the bottom, right underneath our currently running video. So we'll see you in an upcoming show. Thank you all for tuning in, and good night, and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.